There we go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, from the studios at Sky 13 in Waterbury, Connecticut, welcome to another episode of It's Your Call. Been doing these shows now for a few weeks, so you get the idea of what we do here. February 5th, the year is 2009, and first thing I like to do before we get into the show is I want to just plug you see the little website there that's on your screen. It's at itsyourcall.podbean.com. And what that is, it's my website where I put videos of the show up. I put the podcast of the show, so if you want to download it, put it on your iPod, you can do so. You can listen to it on your way to work if you're jogging or something.
There you go.
And every couple of days, I'm putting up a blog. It's like an editorial about certain topics in sports that I think are interesting and my opinions and my feelings on those topics. So that's what the website's all about. And again, it's itsyourcall.podbean.com. So, and I've had quite a few people look at the site so far, so I want to thank those who have done so, and it's much appreciated. Well, first things first, I want to dig right in to Super Bowl 43. Obviously, this game, one of the better Super Bowls of recent time, and it just seems like every year the Super Bowl game gets better and better and better. And you had, kind of a David-Goliath type of a game. Kind of
like last year.
Yeah, very similar to last year. The Patriots going for the 16-0 last year, maybe a little more significant, but maybe I'm a little biased because I'm a Giants fan, nonetheless. But, Pittsburgh's your Goliath and Arizona was your underdog, David. And this was a great contest. First quarter or so, a little boring. I thought Pittsburgh was well in control of the game early on. They controlled the clock in the first quarter, keeping that Arizona offense off the field. But the second quarter, Arizona got a touchdown. Get 10-7 down. They're in good shape. They're also driving to go in before the half, and this was one of the key plays of this football game.
I think it was the play.
It might have been the play. It was a 14-point swing. You had, their Arizona about the 5-yard line. Warner step back, throw the ball, gets picked off by Harrison. He runs it back for the longest
99
play,
yards.
100, I think.
100 yards.
Longest play in Super Bowl history for a touchdown. And I thought Arizona could have maybe made the tackle there, but nonetheless, he got in for the touchdown. Put Pittsburgh up 17-7 going into the half. So that's where they stood then, and you saw the halftime show with Springsteen. I thought he did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Whenever you're not hearing a lot about the halftime show, that's usually a good thing. Over the last few years, they've had some hiccups, so to speak, with that. And then the second half is very, very entertaining, especially that fourth quarter.
It really looked like it was all in Pittsburgh's hands. They're up 20-7.
Yeah.
And, they make that drive, and what really stopped them was St. Louis's defense. They held them to the field goal to make it 20-7 instead of making it 24-7 to really just put the game out of reach.
Absolutely would have put the game out of reach. But Arizona fought brilliantly. And I noticed Arizona, second half, went to the no-huddle offense.
They did.
And that was
speed the game up.
Yeah, speed the game up. Very successful for them. What that does to a defense is it enables them from rotating players in and out of the game. The coordinators are calling certain coverage packages, certain blitz, coverage, blitz packages, and they're not able to substitute those people, so it makes it tough on the defense. Plus, they're coming at them really quick with the plays.
They are.
So they went down the field, 20-14. Pittsburgh gets the ball back, and there was a lot of penalties in this game too. And I don't want to discount that. Arizona had 11 penalties for 106 yards, and Pittsburgh had 6 or 7 penalties for 90 yards. And a lot of these are dumb, stupid personal foul calls, which you should be able to avoid in the playoffs. And could have cost them. Ended up not really being a big factor, but it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, it definitely is, because it seemed like at one point they were throwing a flag every play.
Yeah, I mean, a couple times Harrison made a bad play. He knocked the guy down like 9 times after the play was over, so they're gonna throw the yellow flag there every time in that spot. Pittsburgh, Arizona does a good job. They pin Pittsburgh inside their 1-yard line. I thought that was also a big play. Special teams, people don't realize sometimes is a big factor in these games. Field position is everything. So Pittsburgh gets the ball at the 1-yard line. And on, I believe, the second or third play of that drive.
The safety?
Exactly, the safety. Roethlisberger completes the pass to Santonio Holmes, but they throw a flag for offensive holding. Now, usually a flag, when they call holding, is half the distance to the goal, but the foul occurred in the end zone. So whenever a foul like that occurs in the end zone, they're going to give you the safety. You're going to get the 2 points and the free kick. So 20-16 we go here, about 5-6 minutes to go in the game. Arizona gets the ball, and from the second play, Larry Fitzgerald, in the middle of the field, 64 yards touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, they kept him quiet all day for the most part until that fourth quarter. He ended up with 7 catches, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not a bad day.
Well, somebody kept quiet.
Yeah, especially when he was kept quiet for about 2.5, 3 quarters. So at that point in the game, I had felt that it was Arizona's game to win. I didn't think, I got to give
They had the lead,
credit.
2 minutes left?
Had the lead, a little over 2 minutes left. Similar situation to what the New York Football Giants had last year, with them being down 14-10 with about 2.5 minutes left. And the similarities between these two drives is the ability of the quarterback to extend the play. These, Manning or Roethlisberger, they're not going to light you up statistically. They're just going to make plays in the fourth quarter when it counts.
But the ability to avoid the blitz, Yeah,
get around that pressure. Even when the guys got a grasp, you're able to get away and just give more time for those receivers. And Roethlisberger was very successful at that in the fourth quarter.
Yes, he was.
He made a huge play to Santonio Holmes for 35 yards down the field, put him in great shape.
And that catch.
And then the touchdown in the end zone.
That catch.
Which at first I'm like, was that a catch? Because I wasn't 100% sure he caught that ball. But after seeing a couple of replays from different angles, he secured the ball. You have to secure the ball. In the NFL, you have to secure the ball. It can't move around at all. They're going to call it incomplete. And you have to have both feet in the end zone, as opposed to the college
where you only have to have one
foot. That's exactly right. Santonio Holmes puts him up 27-23, and that was the game. One thing I will say that I did not like at the end of the game was the play where they called the Kurt Warner fumble.
Instead of an incomplete pass, it really looked like an incomplete pass.
I didn't have as much problem with the way,
But the fact that they didn't review it that much.
The they didn't review it at all.
They supposedly reviewed it, but
they didn't.
Apparently, it only took about 30 seconds to review it.
They needed to go back and look at that for a minute or two to determine whether there was enough evidence to overturn it. I think it was very close. And in a play where it's very close and there's no definitive evidence, I don't think you can overturn the call on the field. So I would agree with the call on the field that it was a fumble, thus giving Pittsburgh their 6th Super Bowl title that is tops in the NFL. So kudos to them. And Santonio Holmes was the MVP of the game, 9 balls, 130 yards, and that huge touchdown that put him ahead for good. So,
so I guess you can't argue with that either.
No. So Pittsburgh, in the NFL, see, in the 70s, you had the Steeler teams that were able to run off 3-4 championships. The 80s belonged to, I say, the 49ers, to be fair, with Montana and Jerry Rice. Those teams are very unstoppable. And you had the early 90s with the Dallas Cowboys teams that, with Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, were able to run off 3 championships. Nowadays, there is so much parity in the NFL that I don't believe, and this is just my opinion, that I don't believe you're going to see teams run 3-4 championships off in a row. And I should have mentioned the Patriots too.
I mean, the Patriots, they won 3 out of 4 years. 3 out of 4.
3 out of 4 years they won the Super Bowl. But I don't see that happening as much now, as these teams are all they're pretty equal in talent. And it's not always the most talented team that wins. It's the team that's hot going into the playoffs.
You're right. If the team peaks at the right time.
And that's how it happens in the playoffs, to get it done in that spot. So that's just Super Bowl recap. Next year, the Super Bowl will be played in Miami, Super Bowl 44. People are already saying that Patriots are going to get back to the Super Bowl. Obviously, if Tom Brady comes back at 100%, he's healthy, I can't argue with that. Randy Moss is a big threat, obviously, offensively. But it'd be interesting to see what they do with Matt Castle. They did put the franchise label on him, so
they did.
They'd have to give up a lot. A team that wanted him would have to give up a lot to get him. So should be an interesting season next year. But that's the NFL for this year. The Pro Bowl, unfortunately, I don't care too much about that. I think it's a waste of time. I don't think it's necessary to play the Pro Bowl. If you get elected to the Pro Bowl, I think it's just an honor that you bestowed upon you for having an excellent season. There is no need to play that game.
No, not after the season's over.
No, and I believe next year what they're going to do is they're going to play it a week before the Super Bowl instead, because the Super Bowl ultimately should be the last game.
It really should.
I mean, without question there. So that's the season in NFL, and now I want to turn it over to college basketball right now, the NCAA. And my analyst here is Chris. He follows college basketball extensively. He's an aficionado of college hoops. And take it away.
Last night, obviously, if anyone watched the games on ESPN, there's going to be a big shake-up in the top 10, and the top 5 even. 2 top 5 teams, Wake Forest and Duke, both went on the road. Duke went to Clemson, Wake Forest went to Miami, and they both lost by 27. The last time Duke lost by 20 points or more was in 1998 to North Carolina at North Carolina. Wake Forest lost by 20 to Duke in 2006. Really, if you look at this Duke team, a lot of people are saying Wake Forest, who's kind of fallen off the map ever since beating Duke. Wake Forest, they really are just so young. They're very inconsistent. They're kind of like how the UConn team was back the year before they won the national title in 2003.
Absolutely.
When Okafor and Ben Gordon were sophomores, and Rashad Anderson and Denham Brown were freshmen. It was just an up and down year, and that's what it's like with this Wake Forest team, having so much inexperience. For Duke, their big glaring weakness was really shown. I've said it all along. Everyone says they're missing a good big man. You need a solid big man, but you don't need him to score a lot of points. What I feel they're really missing is that on-court leadership. The teams that Duke has had go to the Final Four and be successful, even win national titles, always had great senior leaders who were very vocal. Chris Duhon, Shane Battier, Grant Hill, players like that who are very, very vocal, and whenever things got hectic and it felt like they were losing their composure, he would hold up, say, get over here, just remain calm, the game's not over, and just gather yourself. They didn't really gather themselves at all last night.
I agree with you to an extent. I agree with you to an extent, but I do think a good big man is important, especially on the boards. Grabbing the rebounds.
Yeah. I don't think he has to be an offensive machine. I agree but if you just need a big man to block shots and to get some offensive rebounds.
He's got to grind it out. He's got to do the little things.
Get to the free throw line, draw some fouls.
And I agree with you on the leadership aspect. You do need leadership on any team.
Yeah, any team.
You're going to get it done in a big game. We do see we have a phone call on line 1, so I will answer that. You're on the air.
Hi, my name is Cheyenne, and I just want to say that I think the UConn Huskies are going to have a great season.
I think they already are having a great season.
I think UConn, without question, proved. Did you see the game Monday night?
Yeah.
Against Louisville? I think that cemented them as a top 3 team in the country. Whenever you can go on the road to a hostile environment like Louisville, who were at the time the 7th rated team in college basketball, and put a beating on them the way they did, that speaks volumes. Hasheem Thabeet obviously changes the game. When he's blocking shots, that makes the other team become one-dimensional.
Even when he's not blocking shots, when he's in the paint, just because there were a lot of plays where Louisville, they were about to drive the paint, they saw Thabeet there, and they just turned back around, they reset their whole play.
Yeah, and that's what he does to teams.
He changes the game.
He changes the game. And the UConn's perimeter defense was exceptional, only allowing 30% field goals. They only gave up 51 points to that team. So that speaks volumes. And I think, even me, I was a little... UConn is their own worst enemy at times, I think. They come out they beat themselves more than anything from what I've seen. But they've won 10 consecutive Big East games, so they're on a roll. And I have to say they are the top team in America right now.
I agree.
I agree, too.
Well, thank you so much for your call. Have a good night, okay?
All right.
Bye.
UConn did look extremely impressive. They look like they're one of the most balanced teams in the nation. They have 4 great guards. They have Kemba Walker coming off the bench. They have A.J. Price, Jerome Dyson. And then, of course, they have Thabeet in the middle. But also they have Austria coming off the bench as another guard who's got some experience. And the forgotten guy, I like to call him Jeff Adrian. You don't hear enough about Jeff Adrian, but look what he does for this team. He's a workhorse in the middle. I mean, he's got a body like a football player. He gets offensive rebounds. And he gets some big points, and he blocks a couple shots of his own as well. So he's a great compliment. It was kind of like the Okafor-Boone compliment they had in 2004. I don't know if it's up to that level, but it's a lot like it.
It's pretty solid.
It's very solid on its own. Its own.
The Big East is obviously in my eyes they're having
an outstanding year.
Yeah, the Big East have an outstanding year. I do believe they are from top to bottom, not necessarily from top. From top to bottom, they are the best conference in America.
When you look at teams in the middle as well, you look at the teams like Syracuse and Marquette. Marquette, who's also undefeated in the Big East. You have two very, very solid teams there. And, I mean, this Syracuse team is a lot like the national championship team in 2003. I mean, there's no Carmelo Anthony on the team, but it was in 2003 when they won it all, and it wasn't until February that they were starting to get ranked and get any publicity whatsoever. And that's a little bit how the Syracuse has been. They have Johnny Flynn, who's an outstanding guard, and they have Eric Devendorf back. And even though Anu Walker was injured, he did play a little bit last night, and they had a big victory last night.
He's getting healthy, and Syracuse is always a tough outcome tournament time. We do have a call on line 2, so. Line 1, I'm sorry. You're on the air.
Yep. Maybe they hung up on us.
They hung up on us, that's fine. Well, back to what I was saying about, you're talking about Marquette. Undefeated in the Big East Conference.
Won against DePaul last night.
Big win against DePaul, who I don't believe has won a game in the conference, unfortunately.
But it was still on the road, though.
It's still on the road, so anytime you get a win in the Big East, I don't care who you're playing on the road, it's a plus. But Marquette, you're going to find out how good they are.
Near the next 5
few games you're going to see. Because they're going to have to play, I think they're going to have to play Pittsburgh and Connecticut.
Yeah.
So we're going to
find
out.
And those two teams, they tell you how good you really are when you play competition like that.
Absolutely. We do have a call line, too. You're on the air.
Yeah, I just wonder if you'd suck the ball guy's neck.
I don't know what that was.
Neither do I.
I didn't like what I was hearing. I couldn't really understand the person too well,
but
so I
wasn't
don't
about the
have
show,
time for that. So
exactly.
If it's not show related, I'm not going to waste my time with that.
Obviously, I think the team that we haven't mentioned yet, obviously, is North Carolina.
Yes. Yeah, North Carolina.
They've had a couple of injuries this year. They've been hit by the injury bug. Tyler Zeller, their outstanding freshman, he was hurt the second game of the season. He did get the medical red shirt, so he's still going to have eligibility for the next 4 years to play, but they don't have him this year.
What about Ginyard? Is he hurt?
And Marcus Ginyard, he had been battling injuries. They had him come back mid-season, but he's got a medical red shirt. They decided he's not healthy enough, and he was their best perimeter defender. He can shut down a guy. He can shut down a guy like a Greg Paulus or like a guy like A.J. Price. But now they won't have him anymore.
And that gets into my point about North Carolina is they are the highest scoring team in the nation, averaging 93 points a game. But what I've seen from them defensively, I've not been too impressed.
No, they gave up 91 points to an undermanned Maryland team last night. The same Maryland team that could only score 44 points against Duke at Duke. They scored 44 points in the first half.
Duke. That game they were very impressive.
They were.
But Carolina. If they're playing their A game, I think they still are. They're probably the best team in the land.
I think so, just because they have a lot of weapons. They have Danny Green who can shoot. They have Wayne Ellington. They have Ty Lawson who can all shoot the three. Of course, they have Hansborough and Deion Thompson on the inside.
Hansborough is on pace to break the ACC scoring record. He's a couple hundred points behind your boy
Redick.
JJ Redick. We have a call on line 1, so I'll get to that. They're hanging
I guess
up
they get tired of waiting for us.
I guess they do.
Obviously, North Carolina, they do go to Cameron this Wednesday.
The 11th.
Yep, on February the 11th at 9 o'clock on ESPN.
Live.
It's going to be an outstanding game, I believe, and I wonder how Duke is going to respond. They do have Miami this Saturday. They seem to bounce back after a loss, but I mean, this is going to be the biggest game of the season for them, obviously, because the Duke-Carolina rivalry is, traditionally such a huge game always.
I believe that rivalry is the second biggest rivalry in professional sports behind Red Sox-Yankees.
I believe it is in all sports.
Such a heated rivalry, only 8 miles apart. So, of course.
Separated, they say, by 8 miles and a shade of blue is really what it is.
More or less it is. Line 1. Hopefully I get this right here. You're on the air.
Nothing.
Not on the air.
As for this Duke team, again, if they want to win on Wednesday, they're going to need production out of Brian Zubek and Lance Thomas. They're two big men. They can't just look to Gerald Henderson to do all the scoring for them. This Duke team it reminds me more of the 2003 team that made it to the Sweet 16. They were really inconsistent at the beginning of the year because they didn't have any inside play. Their big men, Casey Sanders and Sheldon Williams and Shavlik Randolph, never really showed up for the big games. But then late in the year, it started with a big game against Wake Forest. Sheldon Williams came on for them, and they made the run of the Sweet 16, only lost to Kansas by 4, who made it all the way to the national championship game that year. So if someone like Lance Thomas can become more of a consistent scorer, and they don't need a lot out of him, maybe just like 8 or 9 rebounds and 7 or 8 points a game, I think they can be a very dangerous team in March. I think of the top 5 teams, or were top 5 teams of the UConns, the North Carolinas, Pittsburgh, and Duke, and Wake Forest, I think that Duke team has the most upside to grow by the end of the year of anybody.
Well, certainly time will tell. I'm going to try to get this right this time with the phones here. We have line 1. You're on the air.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you think Jim Calhoun gets his 3rd national championship, if he would be up there with Mike Krzyzewski, because Mike hasn't won a title in a long time now, and they consider him probably the best coach, I think.
The last time he won a title was in 2001 with the Shane Battier team against Arizona. I really don't think Calhoun needs that 3rd national title to be spoken with Krzyzewski, because, I mean, he came to UConn, and no one really expected him to win big because UConn was not traditionally a basketball school. And then he brings them to the Elite 8 in 1990 and is a Christian Laettner jumper away from making it to the Final Four then. He takes them to the Elite 8 in 1995 against UCLA. They only lose by 6 there.
And that team was very good, the
that
UCLA
was
team.
Yes, it was an excellent with Tyus Edney and company. They win it in 99. They go all the way back to the Elite 8 in 2002, and then they win it all again in 04. So I don't really think that it's on a level anymore where Krzyzewski is a little bit above Calhoun. I think they're on that same level already. Because Calhoun, everyone talks about how Krzyzewski closing in on Bob Knight's record. You got to remember Calhoun's right behind him as well, along with Jim Boeheim.
They almost about 800 wins, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and you know what? Calhoun, I'm sure he thinks about that third national title, and I think he's got as good a shot as anyone right now. They are playing the best ball in the U.S. right now.
You guys think they can beat North Carolina? I think that's the only competition.
I think that's going to be a tough game.
I think this is the key in that game. If UConn can keep Carolina under 80 points, I think they can beat them. But if Carolina can score 85, 90 points, it's going to be very hard to beat North Carolina.
Again,
that would be an excellent game. That would be an awesome championship.
That'd be an excellent championship game. This first Monday in April. I think people would pay to see that. But I mean, defense is a very big key to winning championships. But then again, that 1995 UCLA team did prove that offense, and when you're just basically offensive minded, you can win a national championship.
Got to score points to win. I mean, that's the key. I mean,
it doesn't happen a lot.
That's the truth.
Because I mean, they surrendered about 95, 96 points per game UCLA that particular year, but they would get 100 themselves.
Right. So I mean, they were unstoppable. But you know what? To answer your question, I would agree with him. I do think Calhoun is up on that level with Coach K. I agree.
I agree. I think those are two of the best coaches in the country.
Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
All right. That was a good call. That was an interesting question.
Yes.
Calhoun would love to get that third national title.
I think he would. I mean, there's a group of coaches with two. Because I mean, if he gets that third one, he's right up there with Krzyzewski and Bob Knight.
Yeah.
And Dean Smith and Adolph Rupp and people like that. And of course, there's John Wooden who had 10, which is just phenomenal.
Absolutely. We do have line 2, so we'll take that. Line 1. You're on the air.
Hey, Sam, man. How are you?
How you doing?
Good. How are you? How'd you like that Super Bowl?
Excellent game.
It was awesome, wasn't it? Steelers totally took it.
Who were you rooting for?
I was rooting for the Steelers.
The Steelers?
Yeah, the quarterback. He's so hot and stuff. Hey, listen, I have to ask you guys a question. Well, Dan, I think you're really cute.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Do you have any comments or questions about anything going on in the world of sports?
Well, I was talking about the Super Bowl.
Okay, so let's. What was your take on the Super Bowl? Did you think Arizona was going to give Pittsburgh as much problem as they did?
No, definitely not.
I thought, I thought Arizona was going to win the game. I thought fate was on their side, but you know what? I'll give Pittsburgh credit. I give them their due. Roethlisberger took them down the field, just like my boy Eli Manning did last year. Very similar, and I got to hand it to them. They are 6 Super Bowls. That is an NFL record, and no one.
I was nervous because they brought it down to 35 seconds.
Yeah, but that Holmes made a catch that will go down as one of the best catches in Super Bowl history, bar none.
Aren't you guys those wrestling guys?
Nah.
No.
Nope.
Yeah. Really?
Nope.
I thought you were Dan the Man champion or something.
Nah. Nope.
Oh, you're a cutie. Wait, I have someone that wants to talk to you. Hold on one second. Listen, can you hear my story for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. We picked this guy up. He was hitchhiking on the side of the road, and he told me that he ran from the cops because he showed himself to. No, don't hang up on me. I see your hand there. Because it's a legitimate story, hon. I'm not going to spare nothing.
This is a sports show, though.
Yeah.
We got to keep it to sports here. That's for another time, another day. But thanks for your call.
That was interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, like we were talking about here, college basketball.
The best coaches get the most out of their players.
Absolutely, and I think that's why Coach K, he gets the message across to the team. Mm-hmm. Bottom line.
You could have all the talent in the world, but Matt Doherty is a perfect example. If your players are not going to buy into your system and buy into what you want them to do, you're not really going to go too well.
No success.
Roy Williams won national title. Those were not his players. With the exception of Marvin Williams, those were Matt Doherty's players.
Yeah.
But he got them to buy into the message of playing on both sides of the court, playing defense and playing as a unit. Where when Matt Doherty tried to do it, it was guys just thinking about themselves and I think thinking about the future and going to the NBA.
Absolutely. We do have a call line 2. Line 1. You're on the air.
Yeah, who's buying the first round at the gay bar?
No time for that.
Exactly.
A couple of side notes here I want to touch on because we know we're running out of time here. The Joe Torre book came out on Tuesday, and there's been getting a lot of coverage. He's been on Larry King, David Letterman. He's big. He's on the Fan with Mike Francesa.
Yeah. I heard about the joke, calling A-Rod a fraud behind his back.
Well, the whole thing about that is this. That's getting overblown a little bit because Larry Boa, who was the third base coach for the Yankees, during warm-ups, he'd go up to A-Rod and ask him, you can come out today and be A-Rod, or you can go be A-Rod.
A-Rod.
So it's all tongue-in-cheek, basically, is what I'm saying. So that got a little bit.
Well, apparently they were saying that behind his back before they really broke it to him. That
you know what? I'm not going to make any judgments yet. I have not read the book. I do have it. I'm going to read it, and I will form my opinion about it from there. A lot of the questions are: did he break any clubhouse rules? What happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. Did he break that code? There's no law saying he can't come out and talk about it.
That's right.
I mean, is it morally wrong? Maybe, but I'm going to read the book.
I think it's like you said, it's kind of like an unwritten rule that what happens in the locker room, kind of stays there. Doesn't really see the light of day. But you know what? If he wants to write a book on it, let him do it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to read that, and then I'll give you all my opinion about that.
If A-Rod hasn't said it, why doesn't he just write a book on it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? The whole thing is Torre had planned on writing this book in 2007. So the fact that he wrote this book, in spite of what happened with the Yankees, is a bunch of gaga. It's not true.
Exactly.
He had planned on writing this book because they figured if he retired, if he went out, retired in a couple years, and then wrote the book 4 years later, I don't think it got as much juice because people are intrigued by that Yankees run that they had. And for all the Yankee people out there that are going to criticize them, let me ask you a question. Have you won a championship without him there?
Exactly.
The answer is no. We'll see if Girardi gets it done this year. We know they went out and spent a bunch of money on pitching.
Like they always do.
That's been their Achilles heel over the last couple of years is their lack of pitching. We'll see if they get it done this year. The other thing real quickly is we have a minute left is the Michael Phelps picture where they caught him smoking. You know what?
In the off season, apparently, they.
My opinion is on this: if you're a professional athlete, you shouldn't be in situations like that.
You shouldn't,
or you don't allow yourself to get caught.
Yeah, you don't put yourself
in a vulnerable position.
You really don't need to. He doesn't really need to be in that situation.
No. He won 9 gold medals. I mean, geez, I know he was probably was down in South Carolina visiting some friends.
Having a good time. He's young.
He is young. I mean, he made a mistake by doing that, I think, and I think that he'll correct it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously he's not the only professional athlete to do something like that. Josh Howard of the Dallas Mavericks this past summer came out and even admitted that during the offseason in the summertime, he will smoke pot. He even said that himself. But I mean, again, when you're a professional athlete, I really don't think you should be subjecting yourself to something like that.
That is our cue. Thank you very much for joining us this week, and we'll talk to you later. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. It's your call.podbean.com. Peace.